Ethan worked as a technician in a small human colony on a faraway planet. He liked his quiet life and did not look for trouble. Each day, he woke up early, made coffee in his small kitchen, and walked through the city to his job at the repair station. The colony was peaceful, filled with families and workers from Earth who wanted a better life. The sky was purple in the mornings and the air felt cool and fresh. Ethan did not have many friends. He was friendly, but he liked to be alone. He found comfort in simple things like fixing old machines, watching birds, and listening to soft music in the evenings. He never expected anything to change. One day, as Ethan walked home from work, he heard a loud noise in the distance. It sounded like thunder, but there were no clouds in the sky. People on the street stopped and looked up. Suddenly, a flash of light crossed the sky, followed by a distant boom. Something had crashed outside the city limits near the forest. Some people wanted to go see, but most were scared. Strange things sometimes happened out there. Ethan felt worried, but he knew that someone could be hurt. He grabbed his toolkit and jumped on his old hoverbike. He sped through the empty streets, out past the city's gates and into the wild area where few people went. Trees lined the road, and he followed the trail of smoke rising in the sky. As he got closer, he saw a broken ship half buried in the earth. Its metal was strange, shining with odd colors, and it hummed softly. The crash had left a deep scar in the ground. The area smelled like hot metal and burned grass. Ethan got off his bike and walked slowly toward the ship. The doors were open, hanging loose on their hinges. He called out, but there was no answer. Inside it was dark and warm. He moved carefully, shining his light in every corner. Then he saw two shapes huddled together at the back of the ship. They were not human. They were taller, thin, with smooth skin that shimmered in the dim light. Their faces were gentle, with large eyes and small mouths. One looked older, and the other was younger, maybe around his own age. They wore simple clothes that were torn and burned. Ethan spoke softly, hoping not to scare them. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" The older one tried to stand, but fell back, holding her side. The younger one cried out, and Ethan saw fear in her eyes. He put his hands up to show he meant no harm. "It's okay, I'm here to help." Slowly, the younger one nodded. "Mother is hurt, please help her." Her voice was soft and musical, but he understood her words. Ethan went to the older woman. He saw a deep cut on her arm and a bruise on her side. He opened his kit and started to clean the wound. He talked while he worked, explaining what he was doing, and tried to make them feel safe. The younger one watched closely, her eyes full of worry. After some time, Ethan helped both of them out of the broken ship. The older woman leaned on him for support. He led them to his hoverbike and made a quick shelter using supplies from the ship. He gave them water and food from his bag. The two aliens were tired, but they thanked him. They told him their names. The mother was Lara, and the daughter was Mara. Their voices were calm, and their words careful, but Ethan could tell they were scared. Lara explained that they had been running for many days. Their ship was damaged, and they had no place to go. Mara said they came from a far planet, and their people were being hunted. Lyra looked at Ethan with sad eyes and said, "We can trust you, can't we?" Ethan nodded. "I won't tell anyone. You're safe with me." He helped them clean up and gave them a blanket to keep warm. That night, they all sat together in the small shelter. Mara listened to Ethan talk about the colony, about humans, and about simple things like weather and food. Lyra rested, but she listened too. Ethan noticed how different they were, but he also saw something familiar in their eyes. They looked tired, lost, and alone. He remembered how he felt when he first came to this planet, missing home and feeling like a stranger. Over the next few days, Ethan brought them supplies and checked on their wounds. Lyra healed slowly, but the cut on her arm closed, and she could walk again. Mara explored the edge of the forest, always staying close to her mother. Sometimes Ethan told them stories from Earth. Mara loved to listen, asking questions about music, movies, and food. Lyra was quieter, but she smiled more each day. Ethan helped them fix a small room in an old storage shed near his house. It was hidden from the road and safe from strangers. Lyra and Mara moved in and tried to make the place feel like home. They decorated it with things from their ship and gifts from Ethan. They cooked simple meals together and shared stories about their lives. Ethan learned about their world, their customs, and the things they missed. Lyra missed the blue sun of her home. Mara missed the songs her grandmother used to sing. Ethan listened and tried to understand. One evening, Lyra told Ethan the truth about their situation. She said, "Our people are rare now. Many have been captured or killed. We have no place to go," Mara added. "We can't trust anyone, but we trust you." Ethan promised to protect them. He knew it was dangerous, but he could not leave them alone. Slowly, a deep trust grew between the three of them. Lyra and Mara relaxed more. They smiled and laughed. They even joked with Ethan about his old hoverbike and his bad cooking. Ethan started to feel happy in a way he had not felt for a long time. He realized that Lyra and Mara were not just guests. They were becoming part of his life. One night, while they sat around a small fire, Lyra looked at Ethan and said, "You saved us. We owe you everything." Ethan shook his head and said, "You don't owe me. Friends help each other." Mara smiled and agreed. The stars above were bright and the air was cool. They sat together in silence, feeling safe for the first time in a long while. As the days passed, Ethan noticed changes. Lyra's wounds healed and she became stronger. Mara grew more curious and happy. They both trusted him and he trusted them. They shared everything, from food to stories to worries about the future. Ethan did not know what would happen next, but he was sure that he would do anything to protect Lyra and Mara. Their lives were now connected in a way he could not have imagined. He was no longer alone, and neither were they, but in the shadows beyond the city, trouble waited. Ethan knew that people would soon notice the missing ship and start to ask questions. For now, though, they were safe. He promised himself he would do whatever it took to keep this new family together. Ethan's life began to change in small ways as Lyra and Mara became a part of it. Each morning he brought fresh food and water to their little shed. He would check to see if Lyra's wounds were healing well. He showed them how to use some simple human tools, and he found old books and music for Mara. The girl loved to read stories about far-off places and heroes who never gave up. She listened to music with wide eyes, tapping her feet to the strange new sounds. Ethan smiled when he saw how happy these small things made her. Lyra was different from her daughter. She was quieter and watched everything carefully. She tried to learn about human ways and sometimes asked Ethan deep questions about Earth. One day, while Ethan fixed a broken radio, Lyra sat beside him and asked, "Why do humans work so hard for things that do not last?" Ethan thought for a moment and said, "I think it is because we hope for something better, even if it is only for a short time." Lyra nodded as if she understood something important. Days turned into weeks, and soon Lyra and Mara could walk around the area without help. They helped Ethan with simple chores like picking fruit and cleaning the shed. Mara liked to watch birds and ask questions about everything she saw. She wanted to know why the sky changed color in the evening, why the grass was soft, and why the people in the city smiled at each other. Sometimes Ethan took them to quiet spots in the forest. They sat under the trees and talked about the world. Ethan taught them human words and songs. Mara learned quickly and could sing small parts of the songs with him. Lyra listened and sometimes joined in, her voice soft and low. These moments made Ethan feel peaceful, as if nothing could go wrong. At night, the three of them sat around a small fire. Lyra and Mara shared stories about their home planet. They spoke of blue suns, tall silver trees, and cities that floated above clouds. Mara missed her friends and the games they used to play. Lyra spoke of the songs her people sang on festival nights. Ethan listened closely, imagining a world very different from his own. One evening, Mara asked Ethan why he lived alone. He told her about his family on Earth. They had wanted to travel to new worlds, but only Ethan could afford the trip. He said he missed them but liked the quiet life here. Mara listened and put her hand on his arm. "You are not alone now," she said. Lyra nodded, agreeing with her daughter. Ethan felt something warm in his chest. He realized he cared for them both more than he expected, After some time, Lyra shared something special about her people. She explained that their kind could only have children with certain partners. The connection was rare and special. Most of her people had trouble finding anyone they could share a future with. She said, "It is not just about being close. There is something in our hearts that must match." Mara listened, interested. Ethan was quiet. He did not know why she was telling him this, but he understood it was important. A few days later, Lyra and Mara went to the city market with Ethan. They wore simple clothes and hats to hide their faces. Ethan taught them how to act like humans, telling them to smile and not to stare. They walked through the busy market, looking at fruit and handmade things. Mara was full of questions. She asked about the coins, the strange smells, and the toys in the market stalls. Lyra was careful, always watching the people around them dot in the market. A group of men in uniforms walked by. Lyra and Mara grew tense, and Ethan quickly took them away. When they returned to the shed, Mara asked if the men were dangerous. Ethan explained that they were part of the city patrol. They checked for anyone who did not belong. Lyra said quietly, "We must be careful. People will want to take us if they find out what we are." Ethan promised to keep them safe. That night, Lyra and Mara thanked Ethan for everything he had done. Mara gave him a small stone from her home planet, and Lyra promised to trust him. With their secret, Mara grew more comfortable with each day. She liked to cook with Ethan and learned to make simple meals with human spices. She sometimes played games with the children who lived nearby, always careful to hide her true self. The children thought she was shy but friendly. Lyra helped Ethan repair broken machines. She was smart and learned quickly. Soon, Ethan found that his days felt fuller and happier. He laughed more, and his home was no longer so quiet. One night, Mara asked Ethan if he believed in fate. She said, "Do you think we were meant to meet?" Ethan did not know how to answer. He said, "Maybe some things happen for a reason. Maybe we were all just lucky." Lyra smiled softly at this and touched Mara's shoulder. The three of them sat together in the warm light of the fire, feeling like a family. One morning, Lyra woke early and found Ethan working outside. She sat next to him and said, "I have been thinking about your kindness. Our people believe that those who save others share a special bond." Ethan looked at her, unsure what to say. Lyra continued, "I trust you, Ethan. I feel safe with you." Mara, who had just woken up, joined them. She smiled at Ethan and said, "Me too?" Ethan felt his heart beating faster. He realized he cared for Lyra and Nara in a way he could not explain. Later, while Mara and Ethan cleaned the small room, Mara asked, "Would you ever want to visit our home?" Ethan laughed and said, "If I could, yes. It sounds beautiful." Mara grinned and said, "Maybe one day we can show you." The thought made Ethan happy. He wondered if there was a way to help them return home. But for now, he was glad they were here with him. As the days passed, the three of them grew closer. They shared more stories, dreams, and small secrets. Lyra and Mara began to see Ethan as more than a friend. Mara sometimes blushed when she talked to him, and Lyra would look at him with kind eyes. Ethan felt confused. He liked them both very much and did not want to hurt anyone. He was careful not to show too much favor to either one, but his feelings grew stronger each day. One evening, Lyra told Ethan that her people could sense a special connection with those they cared for. She said, "When we are near someone who is right for us, we feel it in our hearts and minds." Mara looked at Ethan and said softly, "I feel it too." Ethan did not know what to say. He felt something new and exciting. He realized that both Lyra and Mara were becoming very important to him. He worried that this might be a problem, but he could not help how he felt. That night, Ethan dreamed of a bright blue sun, a silver forest, and a place where all three of them could live in peace. When he woke up, he knew that his life would never be the same. He was no longer just a technician on a faraway planet. He was a friend, a protector, and maybe even something more to two people who needed him. He decided that whatever happened, next he would face it together with Lyra and Mara as a family. As time passed, Ethan felt the world around him changing more and more. His days with Lyra and Mara were full of new routines, laughter, and quiet moments. They cooked together, took long walks in the forest, and watched the stars at night. Ethan noticed how Lyra was no longer afraid to smile or sing softly as she worked. Mara danced to the music Ethan played on his old speaker, and sometimes she painted small pictures on stones, making the shed feel bright and cheerful, but not everything was peaceful. In the city, there were whispers about strangers and missing ships. People talked about bounty hunters coming to the colony. Ethan heard some men at the market saying, "You never know who or what might land out here." One evening, Ethan rushed home after work. He found Mara waiting for him near the road. She looked worried and told him, "I saw men in uniforms asking about new people. They had a picture of a ship that looked like ours." Ethan felt a cold fear inside him. He knew they could not hide forever. He gathered Lyra and Mara and explained what was happening. Lyra was calm but serious. "We must leave this place." She sighed. Mara nodded, her eyes wide. "We can't let them find us." That night, Ethan packed a few important things. They could not take much. He covered their tracks as best he could, erasing any signs of their life at the shed. They waited until dark and left quietly, moving through the forest toward a small, forgotten village Ethan had visited once long ago. The journey was hard and slow. Lyra was still not as strong as she used to be, and Mara was nervous. But Ethan kept them moving, stopping only when they needed rest. After 2 days, they reached the village. It was far from the city and hidden by thick trees and hills. The people there lived simply, growing food and keeping to themselves. Ethan introduced himself as a traveler with family. The villagers were kind but did not ask too many questions. Ethan fixed a broken windmill and helped with the gardens. Soon, they found a small house at the edge of the village, empty and waiting for someone to care for it. Lyra and Mara moved in with him. They changed their names, calling themselves Lee and May, and tried their best to look and act like local people. Life in the village was quiet but different. Lyra learned to work in the gardens, growing vegetables and herbs. Mara helped the village children collect firewood and played simple games with them. Ethan repaired old machines for the villagers, who liked his gentle ways and quick hands. The three of them tried to blend in, but sometimes people noticed that Lee and May were not like anyone else. Their eyes seemed brighter, and their voices had a soft, strange music, but the villagers did not ask questions. They were used to travelers and people with secrets. Each night, Ethan, Lyra, and Mara talked about their worries. Mara missed city and the little shed, but she liked the quiet of the village. Lyra felt safer, but still feared the men in uniforms. Ethan promised them, "I will protect you. No one will take you away." As weeks passed, Lyra and Mara grew closer to Ethan. They depended on him for everything, but they also gave him something new, a family. Ethan felt happy when he saw Lyra smiling as she made bread, or Mara laughing with the village children. He felt a strong desire to keep them safe and make them happy. Sometimes Mara would walk with Ethan in the fields. She would talk about her dreams, her favorite stories, and the things she missed about her home planet. "Do you ever feel like you don't belong?" she asked Ethan one day. Ethan smiled and said, "I used to, but not anymore. Not since I met you and your mother." Mara smiled at him in return, her cheeks turning pink. One evening, as they all sat by the fire, Lyra told Ethan more about her people. She said, "We do not choose who we love. We feel it deeply, and it is rare for us to find someone whose heart matches ours." Mara listened quietly, her eyes fixed on the flames. Lyra continued, "Sometimes this connection is so strong that it changes our lives forever." Ethan nodded, thinking of how much his life had changed since he met them. One day, Mara came to Ethan with a worried look. She said, "Mother and I need to tell you something." Lyra joined them, her face serious. "We have both felt something strange inside. It started after we came to the village. It feels like hope and fear at the same time." Mara said, "We have both been dreaming of the same things, about you, about a future together, about children." Ethan listened, unsure what to say. Lyra explained, "Our people know when we have found a true partner. It is rare for two of us to feel this way about the same person, but it has happened." Ethan was quiet, surprised, and a little afraid. He cared for them both and did not want to hurt anyone. Lyra took his hand and said, "We want you to know that we are not angry. We just need to know what is in your heart." Mara looked down and whispered, "I care about you, Ethan." Ethan thought hard about what to say. He told them, "I care about both of you. I never thought something like this could happen, but I do not want to lose either of you." Lyra smiled gently. "We can be a family if you want that. Our ways are different, but we can make our own path." After that talk, things changed between them. There were quiet moments full of meaning. Mara held Ethan's hand longer, and Lyra sat close to him by the fire. They worked together as a team, supporting and caring for each other. Ethan felt a new kind of happiness and hope, but also worry about the future. He knew they could not stay hidden forever. There were still bounty hunters searching for Lyra and Mara. He heard rumors in the village that strangers had been seen on the roads. One night, Mara woke Ethan. She said she had seen a light in the forest. Ethan looked out and saw nothing, but he trusted her. He told Lyra, and they made a plan to be ready to leave quickly if needed. Ethan built a small hiding place under the house, just in case. Lyra and Mara helped him fill it with food and water. Even with the fear, there were happy days. Mara gave Ethan a necklace she made from forest stones. Lyra gave him a small book of songs from her world, written in her own hand. Ethan gave them each a locket with a picture of all three of them together. They wore them every day, a sign of their bond. The villagers started to notice that Ethan's family was special. Some people whispered, but most were kind. A neighbor brought bread and said, "You have a good heart, Ethan. It is nice to see your family happy here." Ethan thanked him and felt proud. He knew he was lucky to have Lyra and Mara in his life. Sometimes Ethan wondered what his life would have been like if he had not gone to help the crashed ship. He realized that everything had changed for the better, even with the danger. Lyra and Mara had brought color, laughter, and hope to his world. One afternoon, Lyra and Mara each asked Ethan to take a walk alone with them. Lyra told Ethan that she loved him and wanted to build a future with him, even if it was hard. Mara confessed her feelings too, saying, "You make me feel safe and happy, and I want us to stay together." Ethan listened to both and knew his heart was big enough for both of them. He told them, "We are stronger together than apart. I care for you both." They decided to stay as a family, facing whatever came next as one. The future was uncertain, but Ethan felt hope stronger than ever. The bond between Ethan, Lyra, and Mara grew, and together they waited for the next chapter of their new life. Months passed in the village, and Ethan, Lyra, and Mara built a life together. They worked as a team and shared every moment. Each day was filled with small joys. Ethan fixed machines and taught Mara and Lyra new things. Mara helped villagers with children, and Lyra worked in the fields, growing fresh vegetables. One morning, Mara came to Ethan with a question. She looked nervous and said, "Ethan, my body feels strange." Ethan looked at her, concerned. He asked her to explain. Mara said, "I have stomach aches and feel tired." "I'm not sure why." Ethan's heart beat faster. He took her hand and said, "Maybe you are sick. We can go to the healer." Lyra listened and kissed Mara's forehead. Ethan helped Mara to the village healer, who took notes and said, "It is possible you are with child." Mara's eyes grew wide. Lyra and Mara went together to the healer again, and Lyra said softly, "I feel the same way." The healer was surprised. "You both? That is very rare." Lyra touched her own stomach, and Mara held her hand. Ethan smiled, though his heart raced. He thought, "We have a true family now." Back at the house, Lyra and Mara sat with Ethan. Mara said, "We both carry your child." Ethan felt a wave of emotion, happiness, love, and fear. He hugged them both. "We will do this together," he said. Lyra and Mara nodded, tears in their eyes. Days turned into weeks. Ethan built a better home for them and the soon-to-be-born children. He painted walls in bright colors, added soft rugs, and made 2 small beds. Lyra and Mara rested more often. The villagers gave them food and helped with chores. The news spread quietly through the village, and people offered support. A mother in the village, Hannah, brought herbal teas for the women. Another villager, Sam, cleaned their home without being asked. At night, they sat by the fire and talked about the future. Lyra said, "I never thought this could happen." "I was afraid of love," Mara smiled and added, "Love is not something we choose. It comes when the time is right." Ethan felt tears in his eyes. He looked at Lyra and Mara and said, "I love you both, and I will protect you and our children." They held hands and felt a deep peace. As the bellies of Lyra and Mara grew, they changed. Lyra's skin glowed with health, and Mara's laughter came easily. They both dreamed of the babies, one boy, one girl, they hoped. Ethan read books about human pregnancy and alien biology. He learned that alien births could be different, but trusted the healer and the support of the villagers. One day, Mara had strong pains. Ethan rushed to her side, helping her to the bed. Lyra helped too, holding Mara's hand. The healer arrived, and they worked together to help Mara through the pain. It was hard, but Mara stayed brave. Ethan kept wiping her brow and whispering support. After hours, a small cry filled the room. Mara held a tiny child in her arms. The baby had soft skin and large eyes, a mix of human and alien features. Lyra and Ethan wept with joy. Mara rested, exhausted but smiling. Lyra watched the baby and felt love and loss, knowing her own time was near. A week later, Lyra's pains began. Ethan and Mara stayed by her side. Lyra breathed deeply, holding Mara's hand. The healer guided her, and Ethan offered water and comfort. Lyra gave birth to another child, just like Mara's soft skin, bright eyes, and a promise of hope. Ethan smiled as he held the second child. Lyra and Mara both looked at Ethan with love and gratitude. The village celebrated their new family. People brought gifts, blankets, clothes, and food. They praised the strength of Lyra and Mara. Ethan felt proud to be a father. He named the babies Hope and Nova. Hope was Mara's child. Nova was Lyra's. The families in the village learned to care for them. Children came to play with the babies, and mothers showed Ethan how to change diapers and feed them. Some strangers heard of the birth and came asking questions. Ethan stood before them, strong and certain. He said, "These children are part of our family. You cannot harm them." The strangers left, unsure of how to challenge a united village. Days later, bounty hunters came again, seeking to capture Lyra and Mara. The village stood with Ethan and his family. Together they drove the hunters away, showing that violence would not work against people united by love. Ethan felt proud and grateful. Lyra and Mara stood close, their children safe in their arms. Life returned to calm. Ethan walked with Lyra and Mara through the fields, their children cradled in their arms. The sun was bright, and the air smelled of flowers and fresh earth. Ethan thought, "This is the life I always wanted." Lyra smiled and said, "You gave us hope," Mara added, "and you gave us family." One evening, Ethan looked at the sky. He thought about Earth, the colony, and the distant stars. He felt a peace he had never known. He held Lyra's hand and Mara's hand and looked at Hope and Nova sleeping peacefully. A quiet promise filled his heart. No matter what threats came, they would face them together as a family built by love across worlds. Winter settled over the village, but Ethan, Lyra, and Mara kept warm in their home by the fire. Hope and Nova slept peacefully in their cradles. The babies grew quickly, showing signs of both human and alien heritage. Their eyes were bright, and their skin had a soft glow. The three parents watched them every day. Amazed by each new smile and movement, one cold morning, Ethan heard a noise at the door. He opened it gently and found Sam, a villager, standing with a worried look. "Ethan, men on horses rode past. They looked armed. They asked about strangers and children." Ethan's heart quickened. He called Lyra and Mara to him. They looked at each other, concern in their eyes. Ethan gathered the villagers in the meeting hall. He spoke calmly but firmly. "Some men are looking for us and our children. We must protect our home and our family." Lyra and Mara stood beside him. The villagers nodded, ready to defend the family that had become part of their community. They made a plan. The villagers hid the families in safe houses around the village. Ethan, Lyra, and Mara stayed in the old mill at the edge of town, where the babies could sleep undisturbed. The villagers set up alarms and watched shifts. No one would enter the mill unless they knew the secret knock. As night fell, the riders came. They surrounded the mill and dismounted. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his face, called out, "We know 2 women and their human found. Here, show yourselves." Ethan stepped forward, holding Nova. Lyra held Hope. Mara stood close, ready to protect her child and family. Ethan spoke with steady voice. "You will not harm my family. We will not give them to you." The leader laughed. "You cannot stop us. We have orders to bring these aliens back." Lyra stepped forward. "We are not prisoners. We live here by choice, and these children are our own. You will not harm them or us." The man sneered and raised his hand, but a long horn sounded from the village. The villagers emerged from hiding, armed with simple tools and courage. They surrounded the riders, blocking their path. The leader hesitated. He saw the villagers' determined faces and the mothers holding their children. He lowered his weapon and said, "We cannot fight a whole village." Ethan nodded. "We will not fight. Leave in peace, and you will not be harmed." The riders slowly backed away and mounted their horses. They rode off into the night, defeated. The villagers cheered and carried Hope and Nova out. They celebrated quietly, not wanting to wake the babies fully. Lyra and Mara hugged each other, tears in their eyes. Ethan held them both and whispered, "We are safe for now." The villagers danced around the mill, singing songs of victory. The next morning, the snow melted in the warm sun. The village held a feast at the hall. Tables filled with bread, cheese, roasted vegetables, and sweet fruit pies. Ethan sat with Lyra, Mara, and the babies. The villagers toasted their health and their new family. After the feast, Hannah, the healer, asked Ethan, "What will you do now?" Ethan thought. He said, "We cannot stay hidden forever. We need a safe place where Lyra and Mara can live without fear." Lyra looked at Ethan. "Do you know where to go?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "There is a distant world with many colonies like ours. They welcome all species." "I have heard of a city where aliens live freely," Mara smiled. "Then we will go there together." The villagers offered help, saying they would guide the family and send supplies. In the days that followed, Ethan prepared for the journey. He fixed a small ship he found in a storage building. Lyra and Mara packed their belongings, keeping the babies warm. The villagers helped load supplies, food, blankets, tools, and a small crate of seeds. They came together one last time and said their goodbyes. On the day of departure, the sky was clear and bright. The snow had gone, leaving green grass and flowers on the ground. Ethan, Lyra, Mara, Hope, and Nova stood by the ship. The villagers formed a line and waved as the family climbed aboard. Sam handed Ethan a small wooden carving of the village symbol. "So you never forget us," he said. Ethan smiled and said, "We will never forget you." The engines hummed as the ship lifted off. Lyra held Hope and Mara held Nova. Ethan steered the craft gently out of the village. He thought of the long journey ahead but felt calm, knowing his family was safe. Inside the ship, they settled in. Mara whispered to Nova, "We are going to a new home, my little star." Lyra looked at Hope and said, "You will see many worlds, little one." Ethan set a course for the distant city among the stars. The babies cooed softly and the parents smiled. During the flight, Ethan taught Lyra and Mara basic controls. They laughed when Lyra accidentally flipped a switch that made the lights flash. Mara pointed at the stars outside and said, "Look at all those lights. We belong among them." Ethan held their hands and answered, "Yes, we do, together." Days passed in. Travel time. They ate meals together, shared stories, and sang songs from both human and alien worlds. The baby slept in a small cradle built by Ethan. Lyra and Mara prepared simple meals in the tiny kitchen, and Ethan repaired the ship's engine when it needed care. One night, the city lights came into view. Bright towers floated above water, connected by bridges of light. Ships of many shapes moved between platforms. Ethan guided the ship down to a landing pad. Lyra and Mara watched with wonder. "It's beautiful," Mara whispered. Lyra held Ethan and said, "You made this happen." "Thank you." The hatch opened and they stepped onto the pad. A welcoming committee of humans and aliens greeted them. They wore smiling faces and spoke kindly. One woman, an alien with green skin, said, "Welcome to New Harmony. You are safe here." Ethan nodded. "Thank you. We have traveled far in need." "A home," the woman smiled and said. "Your family is welcome. We will help you settle in." Inside the city, they found a small house overlooking a garden. The parents unpacked and Hope and Nova explored their new room. The city was alive with music and light. Lyra found a place where she could work teaching children. Mara discovered a park where she could paint. Ethan arranged to help maintain the city's machines. That night, they sat on the balcony, the city lights below and the stars above. Ethan held Lara's hand and Mara's hand. The babies slept inside, safe and warm. Ethan said, "We are together, and we have a home." Lyra and Mara smiled, and the city hummed with life around them. Their journey had been hard, but love had carried them through. They were a family built across worlds, united by hope and courage. And in the city of New Harmony, they knew they could finally live in peace, raising their children as a symbol of unity between species. Ethan woke early to the soft light of the new world's morning. He climbed out of bed and tiptoed to where Hope and Nova slept. They lay side by side, tiny chests rising and falling with each breath. Ethan smiled, thinking of how far they had come. He reached out and gently brushed their cheeks. The baby stirred but did not wake. Lyra entered the room quietly, holding a cup of warm tea. She sat beside Ethan and handed him the cup. They drank in silence, watching the children. It felt like the start of a perfect day. Mara joined them. With a small tray of fresh fruit and bread, she arranged the meal on the low table and placed soft blankets for the children. "They look so peaceful," Mara said, her voice full of wonder. Ethan nodded and said, "It is a gift." After breakfast, the family prepared for the day. Ethan dressed in simple work clothes. Lyra chose a loose dress and tied back her hair. Mara wore a light tunic and leggings. They all packed a small basket. With food, water, and toys for the children, they walked to the gardens by the city's edge. The garden was wide and open, filled with green plants, colorful flowers, and fruit trees. Villagers and city residents visited to pick fresh produce and enjoy the sunshine. Lyra sat under a tall tree and laid Nova on a blanket. Mara sat a few feet away, placing Hope on her own blanket. Ethan knelt between them and began to tell stories of Earth and other worlds. Mara listened, smiling, while Lyra held Nova close and watched the story unfold. After a time, Mara helped Ethan pick ripe berries from a bush nearby. She passed him the fruit, and he placed them in the basket. Lyra hummed a gentle tune and rocked Nova. The babies watched the leaves dance in the breeze. As the sun climbed higher, the family rested. Ethan opened the basket and shared bread and cheese with Lyra and Mara. The babies cooed softly, reaching for the food. Lyra laughed and said, "They grow fast." Mara added, "Soon they will be walking and talking." Ethan thought of the journey ahead. They had found safety, but the universe was vast. They could choose to stay here or explore new places. He looked at Lyra and Mara and said, "We have a home, but the stars still call to me." Lyra smiled and touched his hand. "Wherever we go together." Mara nodded and said, "Our family can face anything." They packed the basket and prepared to leave the garden. Before they walked away, a small group approached, a teacher with 2 students. The teacher bowed and said, "Mr. Ethan, I have heard of your family. I teach children at the school nearby. Would you and your family join us for a visit?" Ethan looked at Lyra and Mara. They smiled and agreed. They followed the teacher to a nearby school. The building was bright, with murals of planets and stars on the walls. The students gathered around Lyra, Mara, and the babies. The children were curious and gentle. They asked questions in simple words. "Where did you come from? What do your babies eat?" Mara answered kindly, and Lyra showed them how to hold the babies safely. Ethan watched as Lyra and Mara interacted with the children. He felt pride and love. Mara read a short story to the children, her voice soft and clear. Lyra sang a lullaby in her own language, and the children listened in awe after the visit. They walked home through the busy streets of the city. The city was alive with markets, music, and laughter. Vendors sold spices, cloth, and toys. Residents smiled and greeted Ethan's family warmly. They reached their home, a small house with a garden. Ethan opened the door and let the children inside. Nova crawled to a soft playmat, and Hope followed. Lyra and Mara unpacked gifts from their visit, a set of colorful books, small musical instruments, and fresh flowers. That evening, they ate dinner together. Ethan cooked a simple stew with vegetables they had gathered. Lyra and Mara shared dishes from their world, mixing new flavors and spices. The babies sat in small chairs and tried bits of food under careful watch. After dinner, they sat on the porch looking at the city lights. Mara said, "Every day I learn something new." Lyra added, "I never thought I could find peace and happiness in a strange world." Ethan held both their hands and said, "You are my home." Night fell and stars filled the sky. The city. Lights dimmed and a gentle calm spread across the land. Ethan carried Nova inside, and Lyra took Hope. Mara blew them a soft kiss. Ethan turned off the lights and stood in the hallway, looking at his family sleeping. He whispered to himself, "This is worth everything." He walked back to Lyra and Mara's room, careful not to wake the babies. He lay down beside them and wrapped his arms around them both. As they fell asleep, Ethan thought of the days ahead. He knew there would be challenges, prejudice, danger, and the unknown. But he also knew that love, trust, and unity would guide them. He closed his eyes, dreaming of the future, a future where his children, born of two worlds, could walk freely among the stars, and where all species could live in peace. And under the silent watch of the distant suns, their family slept, safe and whole, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring.